Hey there, guys. So I'm just going to warn you before this episode starts that it does get a little all over the place, and there isn't really that much of a structure to it, as you will hear myself and the guest mention in the episode. But I also don't really think it matters too much because of the films that we'll be discussing today, which is Clerks and Clerks II. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and I'm joined again for the, I think, fourth time now by Tom.
Hello.
I think this is the fourth time, isn't it?
I think so. Oh, yeah, I think it would have to be.
Yeah.
Close enough anyway.
Yeah. So for this week's episode, we will be talking about the Kevin Smith directed and written and starring films Clerks and its sequel Clerks II, in anticipation of Clerks III, which comes out this week.
They're doing a third one.
Yes, that's why I decided to choose these films for this. And also I hadn't seen them, so it's a good opportunity and a good excuse to watch these films. So yeah, I'd never seen these films before, but they're rather iconic. They're like Jay and Silent Bob as characters are very much known. Like they've sort of gone beyond just these two films and have sort of become their own thing.
I mean, I hadn't heard of them before really, but they seemed familiar when I was watching the show.
Yeah.
Or the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll just sort of talk about the first Clerks film. So yeah, this was 1994. It would have been, I think, and this was at a time where like it was very much a different time because Kevin Smith just decided he wanted to make films, pretty much is what I've gathered. So he just literally sold a bunch of things and then took all this money and then just used that money to make a film, is just pretty much what he did. Which doesn't... And so it was like less than $1 million. Like this film is, like, as I'm sure you could tell, it's very cheap and has
Yeah, they have like 2 sets and that's it.
Yeah, like the entire film takes place around in one location. It's just in this shop, and there's the video store next to it, and then there's the outside, and that's all you see. And we go to the roof at one point, but actually, and they go to like a funeral at one point as well in the film as well. I think, right?
Yeah. They go to a wake.
A wake, yeah, that's right. So yeah, to sort of just talk about this first film, I recently, it's very much an iconic film of the 90s. It's beloved by a lot of people. And
Is it?
Yeah, it's. Oh, you don't.
I'd never heard of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my overall take was I didn't think it was too crash hot. I didn't think much of it.
Okay.
I thought, oh yeah, it's a film.
Mm-hmm.
But I could definitely see why people enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's also probably maybe a generational thing, because I think this came out in the mid 1990s. We weren't born till about a decade later, so we weren't, particularly familiar with this. And around this time in the 1990s, filmmakers were sort of had more of an opportunity to sort of just make films on their own and just try and sell them to studios, and that way I don't think that's really a thing you can do anymore because of just the way the landscape has changed. It has to be through some, Disney or Netflix or Amazon or something like that. Whereas then, like Quentin Tarantino got his start, in the early 90s as well, and, making films just with money he had, and this is very much of that mold, but this is a film that I feel like you could make it, like it's not a difficult film to make, so I feel like it could be seen as a very inspirational film to a lot of people, just because it's so simple. And it's it's a kind of film anybody could make if they wanted to.
It also had a bit of that like it felt kind of like home recorded almost a little bit in the first film.
Yeah,
Um,
the
where it
first.
felt like you could definitely tell that there was someone recording it. So it kind of gave that like similar sort of vibes like early YouTube sort of stuff and people doing like smosh skits and things like that. Whereas similar sort of stuff to it.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
I think that's something that I definitely resonated with a little bit, and I enjoyed that part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the first film, it has there's sort of a charm to it of like you can tell they're working with what they've got, like they don't have giant expensive
Yeah,
film cameras. They just probably got like a small, like not like a just like like a camera like a family would own or something like that. Like they don't have
yeah.
access to that. And I think that's sort of a problem the sequel has, where because he had the money to, make it how he wanted and had access
It
to all
felt
these
very
things.
overproduced
Yeah, it was overly
compared to what the other
produced.
one was.
Yeah, and it just didn't look. This first one has a sort of look. It's also black and white, which I believe was also a problem, which is because of the camera they had. I don't think they had the money to
Really,
get
that was
like
a
a.
budget issue.
Yeah, because this film, I'm just looking at its budget right now, and it didn't it didn't have a the budget didn't break $1 million. Like it was
Yeah, right.
it apparently this first Clerks film it cost them like $27,000 was the budget on the film.
What the?
So they really, and then at the box office it made 4.4 million. So like it made
Big profit. Big profit.
yeah, a massive amount of profit. And yeah, from what
My
I've
goodness.
gathered, Kevin Smith, he was just selling a ton of things. Like he had comic books that he was selling, because he wanted to make money to do this. And he just was selling a lot of things. He was making all these withdrawals of money, and he took a big bet on himself with this film, because like if this didn't make a lot of money, this didn't do well, he would be in like serious financial debt because of.
Yeah, he would have been screwed.
Yeah,
He would actually have to get a freaking clerk job.
yeah, he would have had to get like a real job instead of because and I think you know and nowadays this kind of film wouldn't do nearly as well. You could make a film for like less than $100,000 and make you could like it's not the same. We live in a
Mm.
different era now, and I think this film really has a lot of. I recently got a book, all the 1001 movies to see before you die, and Clerks is on that list of films to see.
All
So
right.
it really has a lot of. There's a lot to it, and for a certain generation, it is iconic, and it means a lot to people, which is kind of bizarre because there's not a whole lot happening in this film really. Like it's not a particularly there's no real plot. It's just these characters in the location, and it's just seeing how they interact with people and that.
Well, yeah, with the first one, it felt more like a bunch of skits kind of thrown together with a cohesive with like a storyline kind of mixed in between.
Yeah,
Um,
that's sort of yeah.
it definitely had that skit sort of vibe to it, where it's like a skitcher, like it's got
Yeah,
they would cut and be something different and something else, and like it just cut to be the main character, and then cut to his best friend, and he'd
yeah,
just be pissing off a customer, things like that, and it's kind of like back and forth that sort of stuff. So it
yeah.
definitely had like a real skit vibe to it.
Yeah, and yeah, you sort of focus between Dante, who's the main guy, and
Yeah.
like early on in the film where he's trying to sell cigarettes to these people, and this guy comes in with like a card, and he's trying to sell gum and all that, and then you cut to Kevin Smith and Jay and Silent Bob, like the two guys outside of the store, just like selling weed or whatever, and then you cut to Dante's friend, in the video store having an argument
Hmm.
with people. It sort of goes in between that, and there's sort of uh, threads, I guess, where they sort of have moments of character, of sort of plot, and it's like, oh, my girl, like Dante's girlfriend is there, and they have scene talking about stuff, and then she leaves, and then it just sort of is,
Yeah.
skits in that, like you were saying before.
But it definitely seems to, towards the end, kind of um, smooth out, I guess, into more of like a storyline.
Yeah, like by the end, sort of, stuff that was set up before starts paying off towards the end of the film. Because, for like, I mean, just sort of straight up front, I do really like this film,
You
but
do, really?
yeah, I do sort of
Alright.
appreciate it. I sort of, and sort of the way I watched it, I sort of looked at it like, okay, I sort of have to be more lenient, I get, because of, budget constraints, and like this is a first time film, and I'm more like, I can see why it doesn't work for people and why people wouldn't like it, and I can sort of understand why you wouldn't care for it as much, but I sort of I'm able to, personally anyway, sort of look past sort of obvious flaws with writing and character and all that, and sort of appreciate it more for being like someone just trying to make something, and I think I can sort of relate to that, and I can give him more leeway because it's because of what he's working with, but like it's not. I think the film isn't perfect. It's definitely got some flaws and
No,
some things that
definitely not.
I don't like, but
I think my biggest criticism with it was I just found a lot of the jokes didn't land.
yeah, that is
I wasn't really laughing at a lot of the stuff. The jokes were kind of, they were there, and they were like, you could find the funny in the jokes, but they didn't make you laugh, sort of thing.
yeah. That's sort of, I felt that way for some of it. Yeah, I felt that the jokes, like there were some funny jokes, and I did sort of like the whole at times sort of escalation of stuff, of jokes and that, but I did sort of find like, it's also in the second one there was some stuff where I was like, I'm not sure if I find that particularly funny, like the scene in the second one where they're talking about the racist terms, racist slurs and all that. I didn't
Really, I
find,
thought that was the only joke that I laughed out loud over.
like, I didn't think it was particularly bad per se. It just wasn't like, what? Well, I'm trying. I didn't dislike it. I was just like, okay. It felt like in the second one, and kind of in both of them actually. Now that I think about it, that the jokes kind of went on a bit. Like they
Yeah,
were sort of,
definitely.
dragging on a bit, and it got to a point with both of them, to be fair, where I was just sort of like, I mean, I get it, can we just sort of get to the end of this? And I did think the second one had funnier moments, like, overall, like, it had, but they weren't as frequent as the first one, which was more consistently funny to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and I think something that as well that like because I do fast food. And I think I don't know if you still got the Big W job, but
Yes,
you
I
did
do still
retail.
work there. Yeah, I do retail.
Yeah,
I still am
so
there,
you have
yeah.
the retail, right? So that's kind of, I feel like you can almost like resonate with. They didn't make too many jokes about it though, about them being in retail. I guess there was nothing really about that.
No, not really.
Or
I
even
was
when they did
expecting
fast
more.
food. I was really excited when the moment they were working at a burger place. I'm like, mate, they're gonna make so many fast food jokes. I'm gonna be laughing, and they just really didn't. Not that they had to. Like it's fine without them. Um,
Mm,
but that's something I was really looking forward to, is like getting to, because like in the first one you got the friend's mate who kind of just dicks around and slacks off on his job, which I'm sure is what everyone wants to do on their job, and like the way he talks to customers and stuff is
mm-hmm.
how I'm sure most people want to talk to customers, but they also have to put the customer service on, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, I think this definitely also, yeah, as a film, certain people can relate to, depending on, your sort of, if you've worked in that kind of job before. But I did also find that, yeah, they didn't do enough with those kinds of those kinds of jokes and that. I
Mm.
thought there would be, because, the film is sort of talking, sort of has stuff where they're like, yeah, just because they serve you doesn't mean they like you, I think is the tagline, or it's like something to that
Yeah, yeah.
effect. And, yeah, I just didn't think they did too much with that. Like, I kind of like there's a couple bits in the film, like the guy in the first one with the milk, and he's like taking out, or is it the eggs? He's like,
Yeah, he's trying to find the perfect carton of eggs, and he's like
yeah,
smashing them against the window and stuff if they're not perfect.
yeah, exactly. Like that, I kind of wish there was more stuff like that, just sort of more weird ass, yeah, fucking mental customers, because I imagine in fast food you probably deal with some interesting people. You probably deal with some druggies actually. I have to imagine you would get a few people who are a bit
Oh, one
off their
hundred
rocker.
percent.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just like you get a lot of like drunks, especially after football games and stuff like that. When there's
Oh
events, they
yeah.
come in like boards
Yeah.
and
There's
just
just
flood the Maccas.
yeah exactly.
Um, so I'm like, and the like it's like they just didn't make any. They could have like because they got the stoners right, and stoners are like always gonna, no matter first time jobs, always like those sort of first time job areas just tend to have stoners in them all the time, right?
Yeah.
Fast food restaurants and fucking even in retail, imagine you'd get stoners just doing stuff like especially late at night, things like that.
Yeah. We my place we've had some interesting people come in.
I mean, I can't stand customers. Like the whole customers always right thing is the dumbest crap I've ever heard.
Yeah, and to sort of get back to the film, like we yeah we sort of yeah I mean the film is just like a day in these guys' lives
Yeah,
at this shop, and the sequel. I'm sort of talking about the film sort of together because they are kind of similar and sort of how they're set up and what they do in that. Like,
on the
and
same ass.
yeah, they are more or less the same in certain aspects. I mean, like they're two. It's about these two guys who work at this place and what happens in like just a day of their lives. And it's interesting to watch because like we were talking about before, they don't really make a whole lot of jokes about working in that sort of in like there's not that many retail jokes, um, or fast food jokes, which I feel like you kind of it's sort of easy. You can make so many kinds of jokes with those settings because of just the world we live in. Like it's not like it's just it seemed obvious. Like once you mentioned it, I did sort of think like, oh yeah, there isn't as much humor about that. It's more just two guys just saying things, and the comedy comes from their interactions as opposed to the situations, which
Mm.
sort of works and sort of doesn't work as well. Because I think the way the films are written, the first one again, I could sort of give the first film sort of more leeway because of the way it's written. Because it's a very indie film, like made for like less than
Yeah,
$30,000 with that budget. The second one, it feels like okay, this sort of writing style doesn't work as well. It certainly doesn't feel right with this sort of overly produced Hollywoodized way of making a film.
yeah, and especially because it's like his first film. It's like one of those things where you kind of just gotta excuse it.
Yeah, but yeah, the second one just sort of is like, okay, this doesn't work. This sort of way of making film doesn't work as well because it's more of a Hollywood film now, and so what you're doing with how it's written and everything isn't nearly as effective.
Mm.
So I'm just like looking at the ratings on for these two films and like yeah, so they're very different. So the first Clerks film has a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the second one has a 63%. So, a bit of a drop. But their IMDb
Yeah,
score is about the same. The first one's got a 7.7, and the second one has a 7.3 average. So on IMDb, they're pretty close in terms of
mm.
ratings, but uh, yeah, I think that the first one definitely I enjoyed a lot more and I got more out of it, whereas the second one is just sort of like, well, just sort of Okay, I've kind of seen it already.
Yeah, because they do the same whole thing. Like the basic plot line is that he's got the Dante, he's got the girlfriend, right, and
Hmm.
there's another female. They get introduced, and he can't decide which one, or he ends up leaving his current person he's in a relationship with for someone else,
Yeah.
and then his friend ends up calling him out on it, and that's literally it. Like that's the plot for both movies.
Hmm.
They're the same thing. He's got
Yeah.
in the first one, he's got the woman, and then he tries to get back with his high school ex that he's not caught up over, and then his friend goes and tells her, right? And then the second one, he's engaged to this Sheila, and they're about to move the next day, but then he finds out that he impregnated his boss, and then
Hmm.
his friend ends up like getting him in trouble and stuff. That's the plot.
Yeah.
So it's kind of overdone.
Mm.
They did the same thing twice,
Yeah.
and they have the fight where he calls him out for being like a bad person,
Hmm.
whatever, right, and things like that. And it's the same thing.
Yeah. And I guess to sort of talk about that, because we're not really going in plot order as we usually do for this, because I feel like this is a kind of film that you don't really need to, because it just of the way it is. I don't think it matters too
Mm.
much. So just sort of jumping around all over the place. But it's kind of interesting about Dante whether we're meant to like him or not, because the way the second film ends, I'm jumping, to the end of the second film, but in the first film he loses both of the girls. He tries to sort of do this, sort of being with two girls type thing, and and both of them leave him, and he's left alone.
Well, it's
But
only because he cheated on the other one, and the other one had sex with a corpse.
yes, which is such a weird, like that feels like an old, like sort of like that feels like an indie type film joke. That she accidentally had sex with
Like,
a dead body, which I kind of like. That just feels so. Yeah.
it's like they're trying to be funny with it, and I definitely feel like that could be like a funny joke, right? Because I feel like that could be something they could do in the next frickin' the fifth Hangover movie or whatever, right?
Hmm.
What I mean?
Yeah.
It fits that sort of genre, but I don't think it fits the '90s indie genre sort of humor.
Yeah. I don't. Like. It's not particularly funny. I do kind of like the absurdity of it, but it's not like it's
Yeah,
not like it could be a great amazing standout joke, but it just sort of is like okay, like it's funny, but it's not like I'm gonna be like this is one of the best comedic bits in a film I've ever seen. It's not that kind of thing. It's just sort of like, and it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because I would have well, I mean, of course I don't understand how you know people dying was, but I can't imagine because sort of your blood stops flowing, so I'd have assumed it's yeah, it's very
well, actually, no. Well, actually, all your muscles tighten up when you pass away, right?
right.
So that's what would have happened, right? Well, actually, no, maybe
Uh,
they don't. Maybe they loosen up. Maybe I could be wrong, but it is a bit strange that the guy somehow passed away with and kept his erection.
yeah, and because that's
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
set up earlier on in the film where he just keeps going to the counter and he keeps taking things and he takes a porn mag into the bathroom, which I wouldn't do. I personally would not be like, no, you're just not gonna
Yeah,
do
like
that.
if like I don't know, like he's walking in with a porn mag, he just knows he's gonna go jerk off, right? Like it's like as any employee would just say, no, I don't want you jerking off in my staff bathroom, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I would not allow that. I'd be like, no, get out. And I've thankfully never had to deal with that at my work. Well, there aren't bathrooms in my where I work, which is good. But you do occasionally get a little kid who just pisses themselves all over the floor, and it's a fucking hassle. It
I mean,
sucks.
yeah, I've had like we get people doing drugs in our bathroom. We've had homeless people bathing. Not on my one personally, but one of the restaurants owned by the same person.
Mm. Yeah, I just it's so yeah. You just it's just yeah, crazy how in retail and fast food and these sort of these and the work the Dante and Randall are doing in the film, you just yeah, you just they just people just sort of have less standards
Mm.
there and just sort of do what they want, and it's interesting, and I just sort of think that this film it like I don't know, yeah, I don't know, this film is like I mean yeah, like as I mentioned before, I do like it, but it definitely isn't amazing, and I do sort of think a lot like I don't think it's like one of the best comedies ever because I know people a decent portion of people would probably think that, but it's just like it's a good movie, but it's not a great comedy because it's
Yeah.
not as funny as it could be. But like I enjoy it, but it could have been better. I was sort of expecting something amazing from it, and I got something really solid that I enjoyed, but I didn't get like something that yeah, amazing. Basically, is what I was expecting, and I didn't get it.
I mean, it's not terrible. Like, I definitely see why people enjoy the film,
Hmm.
but I just can't get behind it. I don't think the jokes land. That's pretty much the biggest issue because I do like the setting and I do like the indie vibe to it and like
Hmm.
the whole feel of it in general is really nice.
Yeah.
It works in the movie's favor,
Mm.
but the jokes were just bad.
Yeah, they were not. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't think they're. Yeah, and I think in the second one, it was more of a noticeable problem in the second one where I felt like the jokes weren't that funny, like the donkey thing. I did not think that was like at the end where they have the donkey and they decide and they get this guy and Randall he thinks that this woman's gonna like get a donkey off and like
Yeah, that's the whole thing. He literally like hires the guy, hires the donkey, right? So the Sheila would have sex with the donkey, right? The person he
yeah
was hiring. I think it was like Kinky Kate or something like that.
yeah it was something
Um,
like that. It was a female name, but then we learned that it's not a woman doing it, it's a man.
and it's
And
just it's a bit strange. Like jokes like that I feel like definitely work in certain situations. Like you can definitely have like
yeah
that's a fine joke if done correctly,
yeah like an
right? Like once
absurdist
again I can
comedy.
imagine that popping up in like a Hangover movie, right? Like in that sort of like it's definitely fits that sort of genre of comedy, but it just
Yeah.
didn't land. I don't know. I'm not like there's definitely people who are way better at making like funny content and stuff like that. So I have no clue what the solution to that is. I don't know how you fix that.
Mm,
Like
yeah
how you make stuff funny. So it's just a bit it's a bit goofy for them. Yeah, I think
yeah
they were kind of just flawed anyway. If they're just not naturally funny people, I feel like they're just kind of at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of a thing with Kevin Smith is these films. I think these are the only films of his I've seen that he's directed and written. But yeah, he's not particularly, and from what I know of his other films, is he's not a particularly great director. Like he's this sort of he doesn't give actors direction for lines and moments and scenes. He just sort of is like he sort of has them read the script and then perform it, and he doesn't give direction on what they should be doing or anything like that.
Fair enough.
So and I think and so he's apparently not a great director to work with, depending on who you are, of course. I guess since we are sort of talking about Kevin Smith, he is Silent Bob, and there's Jay, and they're the two guys outside of the store. They're not in it as much as I kind of assumed they would have been, considering how sort of cultural they are. Like they're sort of the iconic part of this film for a lot of people,
Mm.
and that yeah they're not really in it a whole lot. They're not even in the second film that much either, and I don't really understand why they're particularly below. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think they're not
they're
in
like
it a
a
lot.
yeah, for like someone who's like they're a cult favorite, but they have like not that many. Like, they don't have much to do with the whole plot, the whole show
Yeah.
in general. Really, they make a few gags and they have like one gag at the end.
Yeah, and
That,
this is
but
in
so yeah.
sorry, and like because they're in both films, and yeah, they're not really in the first film that much. In fact, in the first film, they are just standing outside of the store and they're like selling weed to people, and then there's a bit where they start like dancing, and that's it really. Like they're not in it a whole lot. Like, and then they make them more of a part of the second film, but they're just I don't think they're particularly like in the second film where they do the Silence where Jay starts doing the Buffalo Bill. Have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, there's a bit in that film where a character is doing like this sort of weird, like when in the second film when Bob puts on this music and then Jay starts putting on lip balm and he's like talking at the camera and all that, and then we see him later. He's got like his dick in between his legs and that, and he's like holding his arms up. That's a thing from Silence of the Lambs, which I don't really understand
Right.
why that's in there because it doesn't do anything. It
Right.
doesn't mean anything. It's just like film
Yeah.
reference.
Where he's doing like the vagina thing.
Yeah, I don't really
He's putting it in
understand.
between his legs.
Yeah, I don't really understand why that's there. It just is sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, I've seen movies. Here's a movie rap. Like it just feels like very.
I don't know. It feels kind of on brand for those characters, right? It feels like something that they would do, but like at the same time, it's also a bit like
It's not
why?
necessary though.
Yeah.
That's the
I mean,
problem.
I don't think those characters are necessary at all.
No, not really. They don't really.
They're not even
Yeah, they don't.
like, they're not even that good comic relief. I'll be honest.
No, they're not. They're the part that I'm sort of. Yeah, like I don't really get why they're there and why they became these massive sort of cultural icons of the 90s. Like they've had many films where they are like main characters. Like they've had their own spin-offs. And I mean, it's probably
Have they?
well, yeah, because Kevin Smith is Silent Bob, so I imagine it's
Oh, right.
this film doing as well as it did probably gave him an excuse to, make films and put himself as the lead, which
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at them. So yeah, there's. So I don't know if you're aware, but this is in sort of a shared universe. The Clerks films are in sort of a universe with a bunch of other films.
I didn't know that. No.
So yeah, so the View Askeniverse, which is the View Askew universe, sorry, which is the production, which is Kevin Smith's production company, and
Yeah.
and so the films they're in this big shared universe with Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks II, Jay and Silent Bob's Super Groovy Cartoon Movie, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and Clerks 3. And they're all in this shared universe together. And
Right.
and so I believe that Jay and Silent Bob are sort of the through line of all of these. They're in all of the films as Jay and
Right.
Silent Bob. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm not
Fair enough.
entirely sure, and it feels very like it is kind of contrived for Kevin Smith to be like, to make himself a character and then create a whole universe where he's, the main guy in it. I'm just checking just to make sure that this is right because yeah, he puts himself in a lot of his own films, which is something some directors do, and sort of I guess that they should or they shouldn't is sort of up for debate, really, if they're.
I mean, I don't think it matters. Like, I feel like it can be really well. Like, in I don't know if you've seen Jojo Rabbit
I've seen Jojo Rabbit, yeah.
with I think it's Tahiti
Taika
Tahiti
Waititi,
Waititi.
yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. And he's plays Hitler in that one. Or I think as well. Did he direct
Yeah,
that video game one, Free Guy?
no, I don't think he
Or was he just an
directed
actor
it.
in that
He
one?
was just an actor in that one, but he directed Jojo Rabbit, and he directed the last two Thor films, and he's in both of those as well as a character. Yeah, no, I think there are some directors who work well as an actor and a director, but I feel like Kevin Smith, he's not in it enough, and I don't think he doesn't do a whole lot, and I don't think he's particularly amazing in just these two Clerk films, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he plays Silent Bob. Kevin Smith plays Silent Bob in all of those films. So yeah, that's the sort of through line as they all take place in this. Um, yeah, sort of shared universe. I guess as we're talking about it, I don't think the acting's particularly amazing in this film. It's very in either of these films actually. I think it's a very.
I'll be honest. I thought it was better in the first one, and then in the second one.
I think the first one probably works more because of because it's sort of because it sort of feels more like people playing themselves, really. Like it's not,
Yeah.
and I think that works a lot better with the first one. Whereas the second one is like, okay, can we just have like some, proper acting in this film now? Like, can we have, some, like, yeah, you don't really get that much from the second one because you sort of need acting in the second one just by the way it's made. But the first one you could sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think. I mean, I felt like the characters were. I didn't particularly. Honestly, I didn't really care about the characters a whole lot. I didn't dislike them at all, but I didn't really feel sympathy. Like I didn't feel sympathy towards the characters, which I feel like I'm supposed to at certain points. I'm meant to be sympathetic towards these guys, and I'm just
Um.
not.
Well, the thing is, like, they kind of make it in the beginning, right, of each film. They make it seem like Randall is like just a slacker, doesn't do his job, and
Mm-hmm.
Dante is supposedly like the good guy, I guess.
Yeah, he's the hard
He's doing
worker.
what
He
he's
does all this.
doing. Yeah, he's like the one who actually does his job and has some sense of morals. But then by the end of it, it always turns out that they kind of flip it on its head. That
Mm,
Dante's the bad guy. He's the one cheating on his girlfriend, or he's the one who got his boss pregnant when he was engaged.
yeah. Uh, yeah. No, I get what you mean. But the thing is, I can't really I can't be sympathetic towards Randall either because of just the way he is and the way he speaks about certain things, Like, he just isn't a character I can be particularly invested in either, so it creates sort of a weird dynamic where I'm not particularly bothered about either of them, like, or
Yeah,
can feel sympathy for either of them, if I'm being honest, and I don't have a problem with sort of likable, dislikable characters as the protagonists, but it sort of
yeah,
feels
no,
like we're meant to like them, or at least we're meant to sort of be sympathetic towards them, and
yeah,
I feel like that wasn't achieved particularly, and like I don't think any of the characters are particularly,
yeah. Because
likable.
they try to have that like that character. It's like they're like the character that's like they're a slacker. They got no direction in life, sort of thing. And the characters like that exist all the time. Like they're um for instance, there's like like I think of Scott Pilgrim or like
Mm-hmm.
Wayne's World, I think it is, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Yeah.
Similar sort of characters, and Scott Pilgrim's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I've only seen like the first half of Wayne's World, but the characters are just really good. You really like enjoy the characters in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I honestly have no clue why. Like I don't know what's the difference between them. Like, I don't know what makes us like those characters more than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. And that's the thing, is because I think in a lot of other films with unlikable protagonists, or is, we really can. This, I think there's sort of multiple factors, either we see the character and why they are the way they are, or they are, interesting, or they're sort of entertaining or charismatic or whatever. Whereas with this, I wouldn't say any of the characters are particularly entertaining. Like, they're not bad characters, and I don't think they're badly performed or anything, but I think that they're just not interesting, I think, and that's sort of a problem with these, and I'm not particularly invested in what happens. I think part of the problem is trying to do the whole, Dante's got this girlfriend, and then there's this other girl he likes. I kind of would have preferred if both films were just about these two guys who, we see a day in their lives at their job. I think that would have been much, much better, and just seeing, like, the crazy shit that happens on this one day of their job. Like, that's what I would have preferred, instead of trying to put romantic subplots in it.
So yeah, I like romantic subplots. They can be good, right? There's definitely ones that I do enjoy.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, like, everything just seems to have a romantic subplot for no good reason. It's like I know, like they did it for Kung Fu Panda 3. I remember thinking that was just terrible.
I don't remember Kung Fu Panda 3. I don't remember. Wow.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a very forgettable movie. It's not bad.
It's the weakest of the
very
trilogy,
forgettable.
Easily.
Definitely.
But anyway, romantic subplots. Just not. They need to be really done well. Or honestly, I kind of would prefer, because I hate having romantic subplots be sort of a side thing. I'd rather have it be sort of the main plot of a film. Or
that's the thing. Like, they kind of tried to make it the main plot of this film, but it was very much still. Well, it was, wasn't it? I guess it would be the main plot.
I guess it. Yeah, but it's not really focused on that much.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the film, you see Dante and he's sort of complaining about his girlfriend, and he wants to, see this girl that he used to go to school with or whatever, and he's acting all, whatever about it. But it is also kind of just like, well, I'm not, it doesn't interest me that much, honestly, about, seeing him complaining about this girl he used to be with. And then there's, the really weird, there's a lot of, like, discussions of sex and that kind of thing in these films, like, where they're talking about how many, guys she's given blowjobs to, and how many women he's had sex with and all that. It's like, okay, I don't really think that's necessary to this. And then this is in the first one, but I really don't think it needs to be. It feels kind of unnecessary, because I think it's sort of there to create conflict in their relationship. And
but they could have done it just simply. They could have just literally just had him, like, maybe she had a boyfriend before that he didn't know about, and he could have got upset over it. Something simple like that. But I feel like they went to the extreme.
Yeah, or they could have just been like, oh, he just keeps screwing up in their relationship. He tries putting effort in, and he tries to be a good boyfriend, but he keeps just making mistakes and screwing things, like something like that. We didn't need to have this whole, like, oh, how many, like, you didn't need to put the sort of whole sexual component to it. It could have literally just been, he's trying to treat her well or whatever, and he's trying to be a good boyfriend, and he just keeps screwing up. Like, they could have just done that. And like in the second one, where they just have that whole conversation about you never go ass to mouth or whatever, it's like, we don't need that.
Yeah, like, what?
It's like, it's not funny.
It came out of nowhere as well. Yeah. Didn't fit, and it just out of nowhere for no good reason.
Yeah, and it's not because, like, I'm against those things being in a film. That's not my problem. The problem is just it comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't really fit, and it doesn't work for like, it just is sort of like. And in the second film, when they're talking about it, it's not even there for a reason. Like, it's just sort of like
it doesn't
a bit of
do
a
nothing. Shit. they try to make it like as a funny joke, you're supposed to laugh and think, "Huh, that's funny," but like it's not
Yeah.
funny.
And then it's like, oh, she actually agrees with Randall, and it's just like, yeah, but it's not funny, and that's the problem, and that's why I don't like it, because it's just like putting something, like a sexual, reference in there isn't funny in itself. You need to be doing something to. It needs to be there for a reason, or something like that. But it's not. It's just sort of like, let's just put in talk about sex because that's funny, right? Without
Yeah,
any
yeah, it's like toilet
purpose.
humor.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's not. It's not. It's not like you can't put it in there. You just need to be funny, and it needs to be a funny joke, and it's just. It's not, and that is kind of a problem. Again, more with the second one, I felt, where they just have sort of jokes. Like there's the bit where Randall and he's having this argument with Elias, who's the other guy working there, and his customer about Lord of the Rings. And again, it just goes.
Yeah, well,
It sort
drags
of
on for
it
so
drags
long.
on, and like I think some I think Kevin Smith. I don't know. He probably thinks he's funnier than he is, maybe by the fact that these sorts of he has these jokes dragging on and going on forever when like they
I
should have.
mean, though, you gotta imagine though, it's gotta be hard to be funny, like to make funny stuff. You know,
Mm,
I wouldn't imagine that being like easy to do. So
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's easy to do it, but I do sort of think that it's not. You don't really like the sort of the way Kevin Smith in just in these two films, the way the jokes are written, it's kind of just like, okay, we've got these jokes happening and their stuff is going on, but it's going on too long, and it takes forever to get to the point as well. And that's also a problem as well. Is sometimes the film takes a bit of time getting to the point of a joke or something, and it's just like, okay, I don't really care. I just sort of wanted to
yeah, it's like at that point you don't care for the joke. You don't get to appreciate the joke for what it is.
like, because yeah, we're not really, we've sort of been sort of going all over the place with these two films because it doesn't matter. They're not films that you need to sort of talk about this. And yeah, this sort of the films very much like I think personally sort of I had a thought while watching the second one is I really think I would have appreciated it and enjoyed it more if it was more like the first one, like they had, the budget to do sort of like more stuff with it, but they decided not to, and they sort of be like, no, let's just do a very simple film, and let's sort of shoot it the same way. Let's not have like too many massive camera tricks. Let's not have it be sort of overly produced. Let's have it be in black and white. And I think that would have worked better for the sequel, and I might have enjoyed it more if it felt more. It wasn't. Yeah, it didn't feel like a massive Hollywood production. Because like the second one didn't have a particularly large budget, but it just feels so much bigger and feels like a Hollywood film, whereas the first one didn't to me.
Yeah, and it also flowed a lot better. It just didn't have that sort of like homemade sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, and I think that sort of I can I can appreciate and enjoy a film more if I sort of have a context of like, okay, this is a smaller film, so they're working with this, and I think the second one would have had the sort of the charm that the original has, if that meant like the first one, it's not. It just sort of got like the first one has the charm about it, where I'm like, okay, I can tell this is made on a small budget. They don't have a lot to work with, and I enjoy it because of that. Whereas the second one's like, okay, you had a lot more money to work with. This film could have been better, but
Yeah,
it's just sort of not really. Um,
yeah, it was kind of just meh. I felt like the films are good, but I like I don't think I honestly I don't get the hype behind it. Like I
Mm,
think they're very much. I'll be honest. I was forcing myself to watch them. I wasn't like. There was very little points when I was enjoying myself. I think the only joke I liked was the Porch Pirates joke. Um,
mm-hmm.
um, but even then, so that went on for way too long.
Yeah, it really, that did too. I was kind of like, okay, I didn't have a massive problem with it beyond, I was just like, yeah, you know, because I was just like, oh, he just said the N word, like, straight up. Alright, that was,
Yeah, I was
une-
like, what?
yeah, it was unexpected.
Ballsy movie making the white guy say the N word.
It's not often that you see it, so that when it happens, you're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Because it's not, you're not expecting to hear it come out of, a white guy. But
Yeah.
like, I didn't dislike it, and I did kind of like in that bit where they're like the woman she's like, I think that's Wanda Sykes. I think I'm not entirely sure. I'm just gonna check that just to make sure. But how she keeps getting upset. But her husband's like, you know what? No, I still want the food though, because like, like we'll give it to you for free, and then he's like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. And then she's like, no, and she slaps it up. Like I did like that bit, but I also just sort of was like, okay, can we just sort of move on? Uh,
Yeah, 100%.
and there's a lot of um, cameos in the second one actually that I gathered, which I assume which Kevin Smith got because he'd been making films for the past decade or so, and he met like this Ben Affleck early on in the film for just a brief moment, and there's all these other sort of people
I don't
cameo.
remember seeing Ben Affleck.
Yeah, he's very early on. He's got like a mustache or something, or like maybe a goatee even, and he's like, I don't remember what they're doing. The guys are like talking about something. Let me see if I can find it. But they're talking about something, and he's like, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking about that at work or something like that."
Yeah, he's just like, I think he's just staring at him.
Yeah, he says something like that. I did like that. I will say I do like that the second one they sort of moved to a different location because I feel like we've talked about most of this. I mean, I've talked about most of what I wanted to touch on with this film. Um, I did like in the second one that they moved the location. I kind of appreciated that they were more like they decided to do it at a at a fast food place. I kind of like that more, and I think having a new location is interesting. But again, they don't do enough with it. And like we mentioned, the jokes and that they just go on for too long, and I just sort of am like, okay, can we just get to the point? Can we just finish this and get on to the ending?
Something that I didn't get, especially with the second place, is that how dead it was.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
it's a fast food restaurant. There was like no one there. Like what? Like they
yeah,
literally like, and then like the Sheila, right? I forgot her name is the manager or whatever. I imagine she's the manager.
uh, Becky, I think
The
it
one he
is.
gets. Yeah, Becky,
Played
right?
by Rosario Dawson. Yeah.
She's getting smashed, right? Like she's during like a rush, right? She's
Mm.
getting smashed, but there's like 4 customers. It's like what?
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like stressing out. It's like no.
And also, it's that kind of thing because I've seen enough fast food places, but they take the order, but there's still people who like sort of leave, and I presume they hadn't ordered, which is like I don't think that's how it works. It usually is like you take all the orders and then you just like you take the orders and then there's people making them and then
Yeah, you take them as like they make them as you take the next order. You know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it I think for the first one it's fine not having a whole lot of people there because it's sort of a it's sort of a small like convenience store. You're probably not going to get a whole lot of people in.
But it also felt like that convenience store was more busy than the fast food restaurant.
Oh yeah, no, like that scene, yeah, like I mentioned before with the guy who's trying to convince these people to stop smoking, which I did like that actually, and he's revealed to be like a gum salesman or something, like, or he's being sponsored by a gum
Yeah,
brand. I liked that. I thought that was a good bit, but and
definitely.
like there's the part where like a little girl walks in and she buys cigarettes and then leaves, which is like, all right, that's yeah. And yeah, I kind of think it would have been more funny if the second one there was just customers coming in all the time, but Randall was just like not doing anything. He was like just talking to the
Yeah, they would literally, like, customers were just there the entire time, and he was just ignoring them. I think that could have been like a funny bit, like a reoccurring joke that he's just ignoring customers.
yeah, and
It
then
could have been like a thing, like you could just say, "I'll get back to you in a second," right? And just, like then they go on the go-kart trip. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. They could have done a
Like
lot
jokes
more
like that
with
could have
it.
been funny,
Yeah.
but
I've got sort of one final thing to touch on for the second one before I get ready to wrap this up is the whole pregnancy in the second one, like it just sort of comes out of nowhere, and again I don't really think it's necessary. It's
yeah, like she knew for the whole day, didn't hint at it at all.
there's no sort of
You know,
like we don't have a scene with her like throwing up at any point or she's got like a weird craving or
yeah,
anything. Like there's nothing.
or she could like there could have been even like a thing where they could have hinted at maybe she, I don't know, because they seem to do a lot of things at the fucking restaurant. She could have had like a pregnancy test in like the bin at the restaurant or something.
Yeah, and they're
They
like,
could like
oh,
camera could have panned over to it.
yeah,
You're
or they
like,
could
oh, because then you know,
yeah, they could have had a bit like, oh, a customer took a pregnancy test in here. Let's see what it says. And like, oh, it was
and then
positive. Like someone's.
yeah, but then it pays off. Then you find out, oh, it was actually her pregnancy test.
Yeah, like exactly. And they don't really do anything with it. It just sort of comes out of nowhere. Again, sort of like her and Dante having a thing. Like, yeah, he's doing her nails or something. Like a
Yeah, that was a bit strange.
That was a bit
That was
weird.
a bit weird.
It was like,
I think it's like a callback to the first one though, how he does his missus nails in that one.
yeah, that's what. And he smells like nail polish or whatever they say in the first one, I think.
No, he smells like shoe polish
Shoe
because he had to use shoe polish to write the sign to say we're open, I swear, because the shutters were closed, were blocked off by gum.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. He uses shoe polish to write the sign because the shutters are closed.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and then the ending. Yeah, and the second one ends with them opening up their own. They reopen the convenience store they had at the that because it gets burnt down at the end of the first one. At the end of the second, at the beginning of the second one, sorry, rather. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to say with these films, honestly. I feel like I've covered most of it. So what would you put as a rating for both of these films?
Put a rating?
Yeah, out of 10.
Both of them combined, I'd probably give them about like a 4 out of 10.
Sorry, what did you say? A what out of 10?
A 4 out of 10.
And
I wasn't a big fan of them. I'll be honest.
so like, what would you give them individually? Like
individually, I give the first one probably like a 5, and the second one probably like a 4.
Wow, that is.
Yeah, I wasn't a big enjoyer. Would I watch them again? If it's like, it'd be like the kind of thing, I don't know. It'd be like you're watching it while you're watching it, waiting for the, while you're waiting, like, you'd be like watching a movie on one channel, you'd skip to the other channel while the ads are on to watch that one, just to skip back to the other one. You know what I mean?
I feel
like I wouldn't like.
Yeah, these kinds of movies actually, they seem like something you could actually watch if you were drunk, because there isn't really, or like high, like I feel like you could get enjoyment if you were under the influence of something, because they're not really story-driven films. Wow, okay, that's a lower rating than I was expecting, but you were...
Really?
Yeah. I don't know, I guess it makes sense. You were pretty negative. I was thinking like maybe a 6 or something for no.
I got 4, dude. I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, so I'd give the first film possibly a generous 8 out of 10. And I'd give the second one.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I did get something out of it though. I did enjoy it, and
fair enough. Each their own.
I did I do. The thing is, I did find it funny, and I did find it funnier than you did, I guess, which is sort of part of it. I think I that's fair enough though. If you like a comedy and you don't find it funny, I think that's pretty fair to not be a fan of a comedy if you don't find it funny. I think that's pretty reasonable. And I'd give the second one a very generous 7 out of 10.
Wow. Righto.
yeah, they're definitely not films I'm going to be rushing back to watch though.
No, yeah.
Um, but yeah, we've got Clerks 3 coming out this week. I mean, I'll probably see it because I don't see why not.
I mean, you've watched it. You've watched the other two. Might as well.
Yeah,
Might as well finish it off.
yeah. And yeah, I'm just sort of looking at how it's been received. So it's currently got a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, so lower than the first two. So it's definitely not been received as well. Yeah, it comes out on Tuesday. Actually, it's already been released at I think a few festivals, but it's I don't think there's a release date here though in Australia, so I don't know when I'll be seeing this.
Yeah.
But I figured, there doesn't seem to be. Yeah, I don't know why. I thought you might have enjoyed these films. If I'm being honest, I thought you would have gotten something out of
Well,
them.
I think I would have. They made more like retail jokes and stuff that I could relate to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But ultimately, I didn't. I wasn't a fan. I don't know. That's pretty much my overall rating. That's pretty much it's me done.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to add. We kind of spoke everything.
Yeah, because they're not films with a whole lot of plot and not even a whole lot to talk about, really.
Yeah, not a lot of substance to the movies.
Yeah, thank you for
Cool.
joining me for this week's episode. I think we definitely disagreed. I think this is probably the most we've disagreed on
Definitely.
a film that we've done to date. I think, I'm trying to think, no, we were more or less in agreement on everything else we've covered to date.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I think because this is the first time I've rather enjoyed something that you've disliked, because either we, both did 50 Shades, which is all three of us universally agreed it was terrible.
It was actual dog water.
Which is fair enough. It is not. It is not good. Yeah, so go listen to that one. That's probably my favorite episode I've done to date. Honestly, I think we had a lot of fun with it, and I'll be
Yeah.
eventually covering the other two. Probably the second one next year for Valentine's, and then the third one for the Valentine's after that. So that'll be fun. Do you have any sort of final things you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, I pretty much said what I said. My stuff. I think I'm pretty happy with what I said.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, guys. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Yeah, and check out the other ones I've done, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.